Hello, welcome along to this very simple little video on how to get started with Camunda and Java. We're going to be creating a Java project here and deploying it to Camunda. My name is Niall Deehan. I'm an international consultant with Camunda. That is me in the picture, and beside me is a little hawk whose name is Dirk Manfighter. Today we're going to have 5 simple steps that we'll go through. The first is setting up our environment. That involves basically some Maven setup. Then creating a new project. Finally designing a process. Then actually running some code, our own custom code within that process. And then the final part, of course, will be when we deploy all of that to Camunda. Okay, so let's get started. Just before we actually kick things off, I just want to let you know that I'll be using Eclipse for this particular tutorial. Doesn't mean that's any way a requirement, it just happens to be the one I like using. So if you, the beginning of this tutorial is going to be from the moment you have your IDE open. That's either IntelliJ, Eclipse, or even NetBeans if you like. It doesn't really matter. Things should follow pretty much the same path as you would with Eclipse. So hopefully you're able to follow along. Great, so let's go. To make this whole process easier, I'm going to actually I'm going to use Maven to build the project and specifically use Camunda's Maven archetypes in order to generate the project. So to find that, we're going to go back to the web browser and open a new tab and type in docs.camunda.org, which will bring us to the docs page. And under user guide, process applications, then go down a bit, you'll see Maven project templates, and we'll find instructions here on exactly how to add this Maven archetype to Eclipse. So the key is that we need this particular link here. So I'm going to return to Eclipse now and add this archetype. This is a one-off thing you need to do just in order to let Eclipse know about the archetype. From here on in, we'll be able to use it then in order to build new projects. So if I say Window, Preferences, look for Maven, Archetypes. Okay, click on Add Remote Catalog. We want this is where we put the URL of the repository, and then just type Camunda in the description. Okay, and apply and close. Okay, so that's basically all we need to do to set up the archetypes. Now let's create a new project. For that, I'm going to click New Maven Project. Okay, I'm going to skip the first page, and then from the the catalogs here, we should have Camunda as one of the options, and we're going to create a this guy here. We're going to use the Camunda archetype for servlet var. There's a few others. So for instance, if you're using EJBs, you can use the archetype for EJBs. We also have one for cockpit plugins or engine plugins and a few others. This is the most basic one, and this works pretty well for most cases. So next I need to give a group ID. So let's say com.camunda.demo, and let's go with a simple demo. So this is the group and artifact ID of our project. So let's click Finish. Okay, so on the left here we have a little demo project that has now been created by Maven. The nice thing about Maven is that it will build the project to the specifics that Camunda has designed for this. So if you're interested in, for instance, maintaining a good consistency for your projects, using a Maven archetype is a really good idea. The bits and pieces of this archetype are as follows. We have this Java resources folder in here. In here we should have a little process application class which tells the application server about this project. We also have a logger here which we'll use a little later on. Under resources we have this guy here, processes.bpmen. This is actually a bpmen model that Maven has generated. If I double click on that, or if I right click and then select open with the system editor. If you've already followed the tutorial on getting started with Camunda, then this should open with the modeler itself. And we should see something like this appear. Okay, so back to Eclipse. The other bits and pieces that are important that we'll get to is there's some infrastructure for testing here, because of course you may have heard testing is a nice idea, and it's actually pretty good idea to test, not only a good idea to test these models, but it's actually pretty easy to test these models. We'll tackle that in another video as well. We also have the POM file here. This is quite useful because we have, if you're not familiar with Maven, a POM file is going to be able to describe all the requirements and the dependencies your project might have. For instance, you can see here that I need the Camunda engine, for instance, and I've also get the specific version I need as well, and a few other bits and pieces that are required for testing and for deployment. With our project ready for action, it's time to actually build something and run it. So I'm going to go to under source main resources, you'll find the process.bpmn. I'm going to open that up, and we're brought back here to this. And this has a start event and an end event. So this is a very, very fast process. It just runs and then stops. So I'm going to first of all add a task here. So I'm going to drag it from the menu here and drop it on. And I'm going to change that using the spanner to a service task. So that means that this is going to be running some kind of code. I'm going to say this is going to be check weather, and following this I'm going to drag a gateway from this menu here and drop it, and this is going to be an XOR gateway. So this is going to be a question: is the weather okay? And if it is, we will end our process, and if it's not, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to choose another service task. I'm going to choose an end event, and this one is going to be, let's say, print complaint about weather. Okay. So far we've just added some bits and pieces as a design, as a design of a process. So when we start this process, it'll presumably run some code. Then depending on the data produced here, it'll either go up here and run some more code, or the process will end. So now it's up to us to actually write the code that will run here. So I'm going to return back to Eclipse, and I'm going to go to source main Java, and here we have our Camunda demo simple demo package, and I'm going to right click here, select new, and select class. So now I'm going to create a class that's going to generate the weather. So it's going to be, let's say, check weather delegate. Okay. The only prerequisite we have for this class is that we need to have it implement a Java delegate. So if I click add here and search for Java delegate, and then click finish. Okay, so once more, that's just click add Java delegate and then finish. It'll generate the class. There's not too much complexity to this class. It's just a execute method, and there's the implementation of the Java delegate. So this execute method has a delegate execution variable passed to it, which gives us the context for our process. So I can do something like, I can say something like execution dot get variable, for instance. I can get a specific variable. In this case, I just want to set a variable. So I can go set variable. Maybe I will say name, and I'll add my name. And maybe we'll also set execution dot set variable weather. Okay, it's the name of our variable, and we can say false. This seems a little bit hard coded. So let's make things a little more dynamic, a little more interesting by going back up here and adding a random generator called rando. Okay, I'll import those. And now, instead of hard coding this, I'm just going to ask rando to give me the next Boolean. Alrighty. So let's save that. So now we have our very simple class, which is going to randomly decide whether the weather is okay or not. And I actually need now to attach this Java class to the service task that I intend to call it. To do that, I'm just going to expand this Java class here, and you can see that there's a this class object. Right click, and I'm going to copy the qualified name. Okay, so once I have that, I'm going to go back to my model. Here we have check weather. I'm going to select it, and if I selected the properties panel on the right, which if you don't already see, just click on the properties panel tab, should appear, and it'll give you a drop down called implementation. If we select this, we should see that there's Java class as an option, expression, delegate expression, external, and connector. The one we're interested in right now is called the Java class. If I select that and now paste the path of our Java class, that should run in runtime. Okay, so that's all we need to do for that. We do, of course, need to continue our process. So the XOR gateway, of course, needs a certain amount of execution semantics. Specifically, we know that this will produce a variable called weatherOK, and we can assume it exists by the time we arrive here, which means we can evaluate which way to go based on the value of this variable. So in this case, it was called weatherOK, so I'll copy the name of that variable. And then what I'm going to say is I'm going to select the sequence flow that leads out of this gateway, so this sequence flow. If you do, you should see a condition type. And again, it could be a script, but in our case, we're going to use an expression. And the expression we're going to use is hash open curly bracket. I'm going to paste the name of the variable, which is weatherOK, and then close curly bracket. So what this is saying is it's an expression that basically will say, if the variable called weatherOK has a value of true, we will go this way. Okay, I'm then going to select the opposite direction. I'm also the other sequence flow. I'm going to once again select expression from the dropdown, but in this case, I'm going to select hash, open curly bracket, type not, weatherOK, and close the curly bracket there. So this will indicate that if the variable weatherOK is not true, then we'll go this way, and then run some stuff here. Okay, so the stuff in question we're going to run here is another Java class, but instead of building a new one, I'm going to return back to Eclipse, and I'm going to, you should see the logger delegate here, right below your current class. I'm going to open that up, and you can see that this is a really simple, it implements the Java delegate, the same as our other class. The difference is this simply logs to the console what's going on with this process. So you can see here that the execution, the delegate execution gives us all sorts of things we can know about the current context. So we can print the definition that we're currently at, the activity we're at, the name of the activity, and a bunch of other important information about what's going on. So just because it's already here, same as before, select the logger delegate, copy the qualified name, and then go to implementation. After you select the service task, go to implementation, Java class, and then there we go, paste the logger delegate there. And now we have an executable process. We're ready to go. So I'm going to save this. This is actually a pretty good time to start up Camunda. If you followed the previous tutorial, you already have it downloaded and running. And just to let you know where to go, we downloaded it in downloads, open up the unzipped file, and either use a startup.bat if you're using a Windows system, or startup.sh for Linux or Mac. So I'm going to start that up. So that's going to be doing stuff in the background and starting and loading up the welcome page as before. So good stuff. Now we're going to return back to Eclipse, and here we are actually going to build our project. So to do that, right click, go to run as, and Maven install. Now I've actually left in an error here that's going to occur on purpose because it's actually an error that I've seen happen really frequently, and it's basically this guy right here. It says here that failed to execute this goal because no compiler was provided, and this is the kind of key to it. If you see this error, you're running a JRE instead of a JDK. So let's actually add that. So it's a pretty easy fix. go to Window, Preferences, and then if you type in here installed JREs, it should show up under Java. You'll see this guy here. This is a list of what Java compiler you have. Click Add, select Standard VM, and then you'll have this page here where you need to search for the location of your JDK. If you followed the first tutorial, you would have already downloaded this. And let's go to the JDK here and select that root folder. Hit OK. It should load up a bunch of jars here. Click Finish, then select this as your primary compiler and apply and close. OK. So now if we go to build this project, right click, select Run As, and select Maven Install to have Maven build it. Now things should go a little better. We can see up here that it's using the correct compiler. It's using JDK. And eventually it will start the engine up, run some tests on it. The red stuff is fine, don't worry about it. And eventually we have a build success. So what that build success means is if we open up the target folder, it may require a refresh. We should see that we have simpledemo.war has been created, and this is actually where all the information, all the Java classes, and the process models are all contained in, and we can now deploy this to our Wildfly distribution that we have running. Right now, if we go back to our web browser, we should go into Cockpit, log in with demo, and we should see that we have, if I click on processes up here, we should be running at the very least the invoice process. And the next step now is, of course, take the compiled WAR file that we have and now be able to give this to the engine so we can now see our process. So I'm going to return back to Eclipse. I'm going to go to the target folder again, copy this WAR file, and then go to the place where I actually started Command in the first place. So in here, if you open up this server, select the server, in this case it's Wildfly, then go to Standalone, then go to Deployments. This is where we're actually going to put our WAR file, and this will deploy to the engine. So if I basically just simply paste my WAR file here, what should happen is we should get the engine should pick that up, and then we should see this little guy here show up, which is the same thing called .deployed. Here, let's go back to Cockpit, and if I refresh this page, we now see that we have simple demo deployed. Okay, good stuff. If I click in there, I can click the history view. I can see all the many processes that we've already started, which is none. So let's actually get started with this. So I'm going to go to the little house up here to go to task list. Again, this is an end user front end intended for people who want to do tasks and start processes. This is going to be a straight through process. So as soon as I start it, it's actually going to end because it's entirely just running code. So let's go to task list, and let's here we have our filters and tasks. This doesn't have any user tasks, so we're just going to select start process and simple demo, and then we're going to click start. Okay, great. Nothing happened, of course, because we can only review what happened by going back to Cockpit and refreshing this history view right here. Make sure you're in history. Okay, so now we can see that we have, there we go. We have a single instance that has been completed. You can see here that we have the one in question. If I select it, I'll be able to see the route which it took. We can also probably, because this prints a log, we should probably be able to open up the log here for Wildfly and be able to see that the logger printed out that it was running simple demo and so on and so forth. We can also see the variables, where we can see that the name Nile was created and whether OK was false. So let's head back and let's start a few more of these to see if we can get some data going through this. So I'm going to go back to the view of all current instances, I'm going to go back to task list. I'm just going to start off, click and start a few of these. Okay. Great stuff. And now if I refresh this, we'll see how random our random generator is. And we can see that we had 3 arrive up here and 1 here. If we up in the top right here, it should see a heat map. If you select that, then we should see the most common route through our process, which is pretty obvious. It's everything passes through here. Then we most of the time we go this way, and some of the time we go this way. Okay, all makes perfect sense. So that's a basic introduction into how to do this, how to build a process, how to add some Java classes, and you can see that it works pretty well and it's pretty easy. Hopefully you'll join us next time where we're going to do some more advanced stuff. In the meantime, if you're interested in following on other things that are going on with Camunda, there's a few links here that might be useful. The blog is updated whenever we do anything sort of new and interesting, any sort of integration with other systems or new releases of Camunda. You can also follow us on Twitter. We have a forum for questions you might have, and we have a bunch of other links there in the network.camunda.org space for meetings, webinars, and white papers. Okay, great. Thanks once again for checking the video. Bye-bye.